Welcome back to Unfiltered with Reyes and Victor. I go by Muscular Dystrophy Warrior and my good friend and co-host, Victor the Inspiration,
I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate it. We
and
got
a
some,
published author.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the love.
I know you guys would be thinking we're messing around. Victor here found that we can put filters on, like if it was Snapchat. But this is not Snapchat, this is Zoom. So anyway, you guys, so we're gonna always use, I'm gonna always use these for my podcast. Well, you guys know muscular dystrophy war is a little bit more serious, so obviously I won't use those on there. I don't know about Victor, he's gonna use his on his podcast.
Dude,
I don't know what
this
he's
is
gonna do with it.
fun. I was literally messing around and I came
Yeah,
across
literally he
these.
was messing around before we started off camera. He started messing around like usual. And he found this and we're like, let's talk about, let's do this. With the filters of this episode is going to be a little bit. I thought we had to make it entertaining. Well, you guys, I had this scheduled to record on Muscular Dystrophy Warrior, which is on the same platform, YouTube, obviously, in the same place as Unfiltered. So for my episode on my channel, like I mentioned, it was going to be Invisible in the Room, talking about how people sometimes talk around us, not to us directly, because for several reasons. So this episode is titled Invisible in the Room, but I just changed the rest of the title, Talk to Us, Not Around Us. So I'm going to start off with the first question. So that's why I started wearing that glasses to make it not too serious. All
But
right.
before you ask the first question, I'm recording this for social media just for fun and giggles. Is where can people find this episode?
People can find it on YouTube, firstly. Then you guys can find it on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and our iHeart Radio.
It's called Muscular Dystrophy Warrior, right?
No, this one is Unfiltered with Reyes and
Oh,
Victor,
that's
but
right.
my main channel is you guys can find me on YouTube, Muscular Dystrophy Warrior on YouTube,
That's
and
right.
also you can find this one here. I'm thinking of putting all my interviews on Spotify and all Amazon Music and all that, but I'm still working on it.
I gotcha. Perfect. So
Uh,
Unfiltered with Reyes and Victor.
that one you guys can hear wherever you guys get your podcast from. And YouTube on Muscular Dystrophy Warrior. Obviously on YouTube. And you guys can follow me on Instagram at Muscular Dystrophy Warrior. So you guys know when my new episodes episodes and videos are available to watch or listen. So the first question is, have you ever been in a situation where people talk around you instead of directly to you? What happened and how did it make you feel? If you have one. If not, we can just touch on this, how people in the disability community face these situations. I'll say every day in public, social places.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely people have talked over me or completely became uninterested in anything I do just because they just look at me sitting in a chair. Not everyone, but I want to highlight that as well. But there has been numerous encounters where I would be at a doctor's appointment, for example, and then somebody would be like, "Oh, are you in school?" And I'd be like, "Oh, yes, I'm graduating high school, or I'm currently attending college, or no, I'm not in school, but I'm in entrepreneurship, or I'm an entrepreneur." And this was before the book and the podcast and all of these stuff as well. And then people would just like be like, that's it. The conversation would be over with. And then they would move on to like, oh, do you have any other siblings? And they'd be more interested in uh my siblings, like my sister or my brother, and completely just come to the conclusion that I'm incapable. Like I can't do anything. But now it's a whole different perspective. Even recently, I came across a circumstance where someone was like, "Oh, what is it that you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm in entrepreneurship, or usually I say I'm a content creator." And this was, I recently just became a published author, so I really wasn't saying, "Oh, I'm a published author" yet. And the way they were treating me was completely different. It wasn't so much in a bad way, but it wasn't a good experience either. But as soon as they found out like I was an author by someone else around, they're like, "Oh, did Victor tell you he's a published author?" Their entire demeanor changed. So definitely yes, just because you're in a wheelchair. Uh, I cannot speak for everyone. I want to highlight that as well. But there has been
Yeah,
numerous
he's not speaking for
experiences.
me. He's speaking for his. I'll speak right now after he's
Y-
done.
Yeah, but there's definitely numerous of those experiences, and then as soon as they find out that you're doing something out of the ordinary, then suddenly you have their interest. But
I
usually when they see
feel,
the chair, they just instantly assume you can't do anything.
yeah, they assume everything. Or even when you like be like good morning, good afternoon, or try to shake their hand, they completely just bypass you.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
sometimes those encounters really are not intentional. At least from my own personal experience, some people really just happen to overlook. Like sometimes people just you're just out of their peripheral vision.
yeah. So I mean, sometimes they see you, but still be like, yeah, no. Or they don't, or you can just be, you can be the most talkative person. They be like, ignore the conversation. It was just yes or no conversation, you know?
Yeah,
You answer that question like just to answer, not because you want to have, or even if you tell them, I'm a content creator, it's still the same thing.
yeah,
Not every person, I won't say like everybody does that. I mean, some you can have a perfect conversation, it'll be perfect. No issues there, no, they'll treat you like normal. So
yeah,
I'll say it's like a 50-50. But I mean,
yeah,
we can't read people's mind, you know?
yeah. It
I
really
mean,
all comes down to the person, the
it
person.
depends. If I know the person is not gonna talk to me, like I see them numerous times, like I don't try anymore. Because I already know you're not gonna say anything, you
Yeah.
know? But if it's somebody new, obviously I don't know you, so I'm gonna be nice, friendly, whatever,
And
Because I don't know.
even too it goes both ways because even too sometimes being in a wheelchair, sometimes we get shy, like you yourself used to be shy at one point, right? And
That was
sometimes you
because
just
probably it was more like what in my mind it was like, what's the point? I can have a conversation, I can treat it like this. I'm like, what's the point? I even trying, like I said right now I can, be like friendly with the person. They act like I'm not there anyway. Or they'll pity it and be like, oh, whatever I say, it's like a 5-year-old's talking.
yeah,
I'm not saying in all the cases, but
yeah,
I mean you're different. So I mean you talk to everyone and still face those things. So that's what I'm saying. Doesn't matter your personality, still the same situation, I feel like.
yeah. And a lot of times too, I don't think a lot of people really realize, and something I never actually even talked about is yes, definitely I am very social, but a lot
Yeah,
of
but
times I'm actually intentionally pushing myself to get outside of my comfort zone. Like there are numerous occasions, like I'm not making this up or just like kidding. There are numerous occasions where even recently I was actually recording for my podcast, which was the episode I released this week when I was interviewing her, which was she's an entrepreneur herself, but when I was interviewing her, literally for the first 10 to 15 minutes, I had extreme anxiety within that process but you just don't see it. I got super hot. I got super anxious. I was like on the verge of like literally saying, "Hey, can we reschedule? I'm not feeling good." Like I am not making that up. I never even share that with anyone. So that's a little bit of behind the scenes of me. But what I'm
yeah,
going to say is sometimes I
I get what
intentionally
it,
just push
yeah, I
myself.
get what, yeah, I push myself more than usual. Well, like I said, I know I don't know, I think I can read the personality. It might sound weird, but I can feel like which person can I talk, which one's not.
Yeah.
You can tell. I mean, I can tell. Or sometimes I'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't know they were gonna say anything. But,
Yeah.
all right, we're going to the second one. What do you think some people get everyone else in the room but ignore the Oh no, why do you think some people greet everyone else in the room but ignore the disabled person?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
maybe because
exactly.
they really, maybe because of the lack of awareness on maybe how to interact with someone with a disability. And sometimes
No,
too, you have to have some an alternative perspective or some grace for others because some people really do have good intentions, but some people just don't know how to approach you. You don't know if you like you don't
for me, it's kind
like
of
because
funny.
everyone with a disability has different challenges, right?
Yeah,
Everyone's different. Like some people are more fragile than others, right? So you can't just pick up and shake anyone's hand, right? But there are some people that you can shake their hand, but you just have to be a little bit more mindful of
yeah,
it.
but what I seen, even though you're seeing everybody else treat you normal, you know, it's like you see everyone else treat you normal, but you can't treat the person normal. Even though you see how everybody's interacting with them like a normal person, and you don't. So it's like, it's that not enough evidence to see the person is capable and not mentally challenged or whatever your thoughts are.
Yeah. That's a good one too, is knowing the difference whether or not that just because someone's physically in a wheelchair doesn't necessarily mean that their cognitive abilities isn't quite there as well. That's a
Yeah,
good point.
even
Like what would
yeah,
you recommend, for example, if someone's listening right now and they are maybe an individual where they can reflect off of an experience where there was someone in the room in a wheelchair and they didn't say hi, right? What advice would you give to them?
well, don't take it too personal. Don't take it too personal. That's it. Like it's for me, like I've greeted, you can greet the person and still don't get an answer. So it's like, what do you do there, I know I'm not saying sometimes you have to go out of your way and greet the person, but I've done it before. Like I greet the person like everybody else and still don't get an answer. It's not that they didn't hear you, they heard you, but still it's like, okay, if I don't greet you, I don't get greeted, but if I greet you, I still get the same treatment. Doesn't change. I mean, some people, maybe if you greet them, they'll greet you back. But sometimes, even if you do it, it's still the same
And sometimes
response.
too,
I
I
say sometimes, not saying, I mean, I greeted some people that, they greeted me back or the other way around. But sometimes I'm not seeing you, 'cause, obviously I sit like this
yeah.
and they probably come behind me. Obviously, I can't turn around that quick. But if you have me in front of you, then I'll try to shake your hand or just say, whatever, good afternoon, how you're doing, and this and that. And go from there.
And I think too is, especially if you're an individual in a chair, is you have to be approachable. Meaning you can't, I mean, you like what I mean is if you're like if your disability is, if you have to be like this because of your disability circumstances, that's different. But if you have the ability to sit up, right, and you have the ability to look around, this shows you're approachable, right? But if you're like slouched, if you're intentionally slouched and your head's just down, or if you're on your phone or whatever, right? You're appearing as unapproachable. So people are not going to greet you, even though they are greeting other people.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I'm always chilling. Like the way I'm sitting right now, that's how I sit all the time.
Yeah. This is
I'm
literally
always,
how he looks. He has glasses on. Sometimes he'll have a cigar, sometimes a side of Jack and Coke.
no, I'm not gonna lie. I always have something drinking. I'm holding in
Uh,
my hand, like, how they do, like right here, like chilling, like listening to a conversation. We're
yeah.
talking. That's what I usually do. Like right now that my grandparents came, we had a family over. That's how I was. Obviously, I sit at a different table because I need space. But I
Yeah.
was just there. I'm there listening. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
if that
I'm
conversation,
just kidding about what I just said for the audience as well.
yeah. I mean, I do wear my glasses on. I got some Oakley glasses. I know most of you wearing the one the athletes use.
I don't know if I ever seen you wear glasses.
No, I mean the sunglasses.
I don't think I've ever seen you wear glasses. Sunglasses.
Sunglasses?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got some that they were like 200, 300. I think they cost. I
Yeah.
mean, they're dark, you barely can see. Like, I don't like wearing it 'cause I can't. I take them off at some points. I'm like, no way, I'm gonna crash here.
Are
So
they Oakleys?
yeah,
Yeah, Oakleys are fire.
yeah. That's one like I can barely see. I think I'll put them on next episode, but I told you I can't really see.
Yeah.
I can see a little bit, but not like 100%. That's why for these they look just the ones I have. All right, we'll move on to the third question. When someone talks to your parent, caregiver, sibling, or friend instead of you, what message does that send?
That you're incapable.
I mean, you they have siblings. Did it ever happen like when you were younger? Or I mean, any story you can share? I
Yeah,
mean, that
yeah,
question.
like I mentioned earlier, like some people would be like, for example, at being at a doctor's appointment, right? Now that I'm older, it's a little
No,
bit
I
different.
mean, I'm talking
But
about when they're with you, when your brother or sister was with you. Like, I know you guys, whenever you guys went somewhere together, that's what I meant. Or with your cousins, I
yeah,
don't know, anybody.
some people would like if we're out ordering at a restaurant, for example, is sometimes the wait or not sometimes, but a lot of the times the waitress would just ask like, "Oh, what does he want?" Right? Instead of like asking me directly, as if like I'm not there.
Yeah.
And I don't and again, I have empathy towards these individuals because, one, you don't know if they had an experience where they were like, oh, they don't speak, right? So they're like, oh,
Or also you had
I'm not gonna do it again. I'm not gonna make that
or
mistake. Mm.
or you had a bad experience. You know how some individuals with autism they'll grab the person and not like,
Yeah.
bro,
And
but you
that
like
too,
get
the severity of the diagnosis, especially if their cognitive ability isn't
I'll
quite there
joke around with them.
and they
Like,
have a
I'm not
bad
gonna grab
experience.
you. Like, I'm not gonna do that. You can sit next to me, whatever. I'm not gonna grab you or do something. But
Yeah.
maybe you had a bad experience like that. Now you're like, what happens if it does happens again? I get that point.
Like what
It
I
can
do
be
now is I just like obviously I mean not obviously, but I would just look at the menu and then I'll just order. And then eventually if they're looking away from me or not, usually they look to me now, maybe because it's I'm older or my backpack maybe. I don't know, I'm not too sure. But because my
no, I don't.
backpack advertises who I am. So, that's why I mentioned the backpack. But I just vocalize like, oh, I want this, and then,
Or
and
me,
then
like I would have the sunglasses. Probably like, oh no, he knows what he's wearing. That's why he's wearing that.
yeah.
I mean, they never. I mean, I have sometimes for most of the time they ask me directly. Like I don't know what, like you were saying earlier. Maybe it's that you were approachable. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a really big one is being approachable.
Yeah, I think
I think
like
that's a
what
really
you're
big
saying about restaurant, they always ask me directly what do I want. I mean,
yeah.
once in a while they're not asking for it. It's always like they ask me directly. So I'm like, maybe I'm approachable, like I said.
Yeah. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe they recognize Jefe,
Yeah,
the
probably
boss.
they'll be like he had his hat and sunglasses. Nobody had those glasses.
Oh, that's funny.
Or I had, yeah, yeah, I think that, yeah, I think we all have experienced something like that.
Yeah.
Do you think people do this because they are being rude, uncomfortable, or just unaware? Or it depends. I
It,
think it
it,
can be all three.
yeah, I was just about to say it could be a combination of all. One, they could just be have a rude personality. They can have bad experiences pretty much. Or simply maybe it could just be the lack of awareness of, although they're in a wheelchair, like they themselves are human, right? And and just test the waters yourself. If it's your first encounter, like just, like what are they gonna do? Jump out of the chair and
Or I
react a
like,
certain way?
or like I like to say, grab you
Yeah, or
and
grab
not
you.
like
I mean,
go.
like literally, what's the worst case scenario?
I'll
Obviously there
grab
are
you
some worst case scenarios, but like the chances of that happening is very slim to none.
one
You know,
percent.
yeah, like 1%. Like worst case scenario in terms of, you getting grabbed or you getting hit. But sometimes, usually, at least from my own personal experience and observation, is usually when kids have, or not just kids, but people who have cognitive a decline, right? Usually they don't really go out in a public setting much, at least from my own personal life experiences, just because they know it's the by they I'm talking about the guardian of the individual or the caregiver of the individual, where they know it's a little bit um it's a little bit more challenging or difficult. I don't really know the right words for that. It's harder um to just be present, you know. That sounds horrible. What I mean to say is like sometimes when you have a child that requires more needs, sometimes it's a lot more harder to make their needs met. That's a more healthy terminology. I am so sorry.
For me, it's like it can be either one, so you never know. Just like Victor said, be approachable. Then you can tell like if it's either one of those three.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, number five is what is worse, being completely ignored, being stared at, or being talked to you like you're a child? Almost like the same thing like the other question.
Do people talk to me like I'm a child?
Which one like could be like which one's like will make people, make you like which one's like worse to deal with, honestly?
What was the question? Was something about being a child and what?
What is worse, being completely ignored, being stared at, or being talked to like you are a child? Why? We can skip this one. So I told you I didn't look at the questions.
Probably like all the above. But two, again, you have to develop empathy. Like, who is the individual? For example, I had one encounter, I will never forget this.
I mean, for me, if it's a kid, like a child, 5, 2 years old, I won't say anything.
Yeah, that's different.
I mean, I won't be bothered by it. I mean, it's
Yeah,
funny. Kids can be entertaining.
yeah.
Even your own nephews or cousins who are little can ask you a lot of questions.
Hmm. And they're just curious, they're innocent.
Yeah, they always like the control for some reason.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad
I'm
about
I'm old, I'm like 27 and I'm still curious, I don't I'm mindful of the individual, but if the person is approachable, I'm like, hey, if you don't mind me asking, like, what's your
it.
disability?
Yeah. I mean, we ask too. They probably think, oh, people with disability don't ask each other. Like, yeah, we're curious too.
Yeah, yeah,
We
we're curious
stare
too.
too, I think,
Yeah,
but we don't assume. We know. We kind of get an idea.
yeah. And sometimes too, at least from my own personal experiences, a lot of these individuals with a disability have a great sense of humor.
Well, I learned from you a little bit. I learned from this. Yeah, I like Victor likes to mess around.
Yeah, I'm always messing around. Got to be the light of the room.
Yeah, I can agree with that. All right, next question. What do you think people assume disabled people can speak, understand, or answer for themselves?
Repeat that last question.
Why do you think people assume disabled people cannot speak, understand, or answer for themselves? Like what we were talking about right now, basically.
Maybe the lack of awareness, I would assume. Or not assume. I like that's what I'm leaning more towards is a lack of awareness of understanding the difference between there's more than just one type of diagnosis of a disability.
Yeah, I feel like it's mostly awareness, I'll say. But I think I've noticed like people that have siblings with disability, they're or the people that least do this.
Mhm.
When if you think about it.
But even too, you also have to put it in perspective too. This is just who I am with my own personal perspective. Is you have to take a much bigger look at the situation. Is sometimes it's not just so much like because you're in a wheelchair. Like sometimes there's people navigating a mental health journey. There's other people navigating a season. So where I'm going with this is some of these individuals have bad experiences with certain people where they just it's a lot more harder for them to kind of approach you or kind of um, initiate that spark of conversation.
Yeah, I think good answer with that. All right, next one. Do you think society teaches people how to interact with disabled people, or does it leave people awkward and ignorant?
I
I
think
mean,
we're definitely making a lot more breakthroughs within the disabled community. I think there's a lot of people who are I think there's a lot of individuals who are in a wheelchair who are advocating where they are spreading a lot more awareness about their own diagnosis or spreading a lot more advocacy in terms of more accessibility. And I think these are the individuals that are paving a path where it's much less common to have an awkward encounter coming across an individual with a disability because more awareness and more accessibility is starting to be improved. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we definitely have made a lot. We are definitely a lot further than where initially we had started.
I agree. I agree. I feel like there's more awareness,
Mhm.
and stuff than it used to be. Because I feel like we used to not teach that.
Yeah.
All right, next question. What is the difference between someone being curious and someone being disrespectful?
Curious would be like, hey, like this is if I didn't know you, this is how I would approach you. Hey, brother, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of disability do you have? Right? To me, that's being respectful, right? Now, if I didn't know you and I come up to you, it's funny with these glasses, bro. And I come up to you and I don't know you, and I'm like, I'm like, man, dude, you must have gotten in a serious accident, or man, dude, it must suck, to be like that. Like, for example, there was one encounter I had. They were
All right,
young,
let me hear.
so they get a pass on it, but they were
They were
young.
young. The only pass they're getting is if they're little, like I
Yeah,
said,
if they're
like our
young,
niece. If she's little, I'm fine with it.
like
My
these,
cousin used to see my brace and thought if I put those to walk, I'm like, I let him slide on that. 'Cause he was cute. He didn't say it that way. He always spoke like, hold on. He would always ask questions like that about everything. They would always yell at him. But I tell my mom, he's just asking. He never did it with that intent. He still does that. I mean, now he asks questions about everything. But
yeah,
he never did it. But my mom's like, other people who don't know him, they're gonna think he's being rude. He was just asking. I'm like,
yeah.
all right, go ahead.
I think there's just multiple ways
Yeah, go
uh,
ahead and tell me like
to
what happened
to go about
when
it.
you were
But oh yeah,
young.
so this young child just young and innocent to like, excuse me, and I'm like, yes. They're like, why are you so broken? And those were the exact words, and that was like one of the most brutalist
Wasn't
questions
that wasn't
I've
that
been
wasn't
asked.
it
And I was young
what
myself. I was
wasn't it a
probably,
family member who told you
yeah,
that?
it was family. So I was probably
Yeah, I
pushing.
remember. Yeah, I
I was
remember too.
I was probably pushing like maybe early teenage years, like 12,
I
13, roughly
remember
around.
you told me that it was a
And
family
it just like
member that
stuck
told you.
with me. But at the time, like I wasn't as social as I am now. So at the time, I really
No, don't
didn't know how
lie.
to respond. And I literally just turned around and just rolled away. You know what I mean? But I was like, that's like,
Where was only you there or your siblings?
it was just me. Well, I mean, I was there with family, but like I was me being me, just strumming around everywhere. You know what I mean? And that's how
Like
that
always.
encounter kind of happened. But
For those that don't know, Victor, he never stays still. So I'm
yeah,
surprised we can do I'm surprised we can do these podcasts without him moving around.
yeah. Fun fact: I would literally be in school, and as soon as I would be done with my work, I would rock in front of my desk, back and forth. Like literally, I would be like this.
Everywhere. High school,
The
4 years,
the
I had to deal with this.
the entire time I'll just be like that until, sometimes if it was like a test or something, I couldn't do that because it would be a distraction. But I was that student. Yeah.
All right then. Yeah, I remember that story.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I did tell you that.
Yeah, I forgot. That's what I was saying. All right, next question. We still have two more. how can caregivers, parents, siblings, or friends help redirect the conversation back to the disabled person?
In what way? Like, what do you mean?
Like how can we include him him or her in the conversation, you know? You know, like we were talking about that they talk to the caregiver, parent, or sibling. How can
Like how my cousins would, for example.
you know how
Uh,
you know how can you like I know the question didn't like ChatGPT did not really word it right, but I'm saying that how can we include them, you know, when they're being excluded from the converse like when we
treat
were
them
talking about
just treat them like any ordinary individual, whether they had a disability or not. So, for example, to give you like a quick little story, is when I used to game, when I had the physical capability to play
they're
like
special controllers
PlayStation,
now, you
right?
know.
Or like PS3, PS4, PS. I never really played with PS5, but PS3
You
and PS4s, when I'd play, and sometimes I'd be attending a family gathering, and then because I was there after them, right? Already, my cousins already socializing, and I would come in and they'd be like, oh, be like, hey, what are you guys talking about? They'll be, for example, they'll be talking about Call of Duty, for example. And they'll be like, oh, like, did you guys know Victor games as well? And they're like, oh, what? What's your gamer tag? And things like that. So, like, where I'm going at that is just draw them into the conversation like you would anyone else. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and I think when you do that, you would find that there's actually so much more in common with you guys than you probably would have missed out on.
Hmm? Mm-mm. Mm-mm. All right. Did that key? Bye-bye. Okay. All right, last question. What do you wish people understood for their approach or ignore someone with a disability?
Um, Again, just be genuine. Just treat them like another human being, whether they had a disability or not. Hey, how's your day going? What are you up to? Are you in school? Do you work? Like, what is it that you do? What is it that you like? There's like so many branches of conversation starters that if you can just really just come from a genuine curiosity of a standpoint, I think you would like not only spark potentially a great conversation, but understand that you two are so much more alike than you realize. Yeah, yes, they might be in a wheelchair, but at the end of the day, you both bleed the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point. All right, we made to that point of the rapid fire questions, which is going to be five, one word to describe how it feels to be ignored.
Overlooked.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing. Two, what hurts more? I think I already answered that one. Let's go to the next one. What should people say instead of asking the caregiver about you?
Well,
I'll say ask you.
there's like so many ways to like approach that. You can be like, what is it that you need? What is it that you need help with? Um, what is it that you like? What is it that you don't like? If it's in terms of accessibility, do you need me to move this couch a little over? Do you need me to move this entertainment system, or not entertainment system, but do you need me to move this
It's,
furniture a little bit over, or move this chair out of your way, or things like that?
all right. What is one thing people need to stop doing immediately?
But even too, to touch a little bit more on that, is usually if people really know you, like whether you're their family or their friend, or whether you are their family or their friend,
Family,
usually they
friend.
already know that without you even having to say anything. Like, for example, I would attend family gatherings, and without me even asking, they're like, "Hey, Vic, like we have steps, but hey, look what we did." And like some of my cousins or social gatherings, what they would do is they would get like bricks from like around the house or whatever, or rocks, and combine them in a way where I was able to essentially they made their own ramp. So that's I wanted to touch on that a little bit.
All right. So to answer question four,
What happened?
yeah, still have to answer question four.
Or what was the last question?
What is one thing people need to stop doing immediately related to what we're talking about in this episode?
Mm, Thinking that we really don't have anything in common just because we are in a wheelchair, you know? Like,
I'll say
hey,
assume
like, hey,
things.
Alfonso, do you game? Right? And somebody's like, oh,
Yeah, of
me too.
course.
Right? Hey,
What
Victor,
games do you
like you're a
play?
content creator, like, oh, me too. Right? Or like, or whatever. Hey, Victor, you like going to the park? Me too, right? Or there's like just like at the end of the day, we're human.
Assume things.
You know what I mean?
For
Sure,
me, it's
we
like a
may lack certain
ability.
physical capabilities or abilities, right? But like at the end of the day, we are human just as you. Like we feel what you feel, you know? Like we're not everyone in a wheelchair is paralyzed, right? So like we feel what you feel. We experience the same things, you know?
Yeah,
To some extent.
I'll say assume things, which is something like what you were saying. All right, last question. It says, finish this sentence. Disabled people are not invisible. We are human.
Resilient.
That too.
Hmm.
Well, that's been this episode, you guys. What do you guys think? Leave your guys' comments down below about this topic. Have you or someone you know experienced this kind of thing that we talked about? Or what do you think people should society, what things does society need to change to improve how people with disability are treated, not talked over like we talked about in the title. So let me know down below in the questions. And that's it for this episode, you guys. Hope you liked it. This was another important topic to discuss. So stay tuned, you guys, because I'll be uploading a video on Muscular Dystrophy Warrior talking about this topic, but giving you guys 10 reasons why people talk over us. Hopefully, some of the reasons are accurate because these questions, most of them were accurate, but most of them, we had to skip because the wording wasn't correctly. So, so this has been another episode of Unfiltered with Reyes and Victor. I'm Muscular Dystrophy Warrior and my co-host Victor, the Inspiration. So I'll see you guys in the next one.